Our next speaker is Dr. Chandrasekhar, who is the Medical Director of Avikar Eye Institute, a very leading cataract and refractive surgeon, and he is going to dwell on planning topo-guided treatments in normal corneas, and we look forward to knowing a lot from him. On to you, Doctor.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, ARC, for giving me this opportunity. I hope you can see my screen and hear me properly. Planning Contura or topo-guided treatment in a normal cornea, the first step is getting a very good data acquisition. Dr. Deepti has already shown that the readings have to be taken before any drops or contact with the cornea. And we have to take the readings before the tear film starts breaking up. The head position is very, very important because we know, like so many instruments we do, including Varion and IOL Master, Lenstar, that head position makes a lot of difference in our readings. But concession has to be given for nose shadow, high brow, patients with high brow, and a small palpebral fissure. And multiple reproducible readings have to be taken. Remember that if we may induce an error, we will still get multiple reproducible readings, but all of them can be wrong. And therefore, you have to be very vigilant that you are doing it the correct way. Now, this is an example of a very good quality image. You can see that on the there is a nasal shadow here, and the patient is having probably high brow, and the eyelashes are also coming in between. But the pupil is very well detected and the seen, and the Myers are, the Placido rings are very good. So we can still go ahead with this reading. Of course, if you want, you can tilt the patient on the right side or left side, which depending on the eye, and to decrease the nose shadow. Now, there are two important things over here. Number one is this is the, this is the preferred treatment. Over here, this is the preferred treatment. Now, it means that this is a very good quality image. If you do not get this, it will say that the acquisition is less than optimal, and you may have to do repeat the reading. Similarly, this R is important. That means the registration has been done. So what it means that angle kappa and this cyclotorsion compensation is very well being taken care of. Now, this is an example where the upper P is in red, and you can see that over here the data in the upper quadrant is not adequate. Now, once you got a very good data, there are four important steps. Number one is that selection of the maps at the workstation. This is pretty standard. We have to follow certain rules. Second thing is that C4 or C12 compensation. There are multiple ways of doing this, but I will stick to the method which I follow. And then manipulating refraction, that means adjusting spherical component. Remember that whenever we are doing something extra, it is going to ablate more. It will have a refractive effect, and keeping the spherical equivalent constant is what I mean by manipulating refraction. And then in the end is applying nomogram. So this is how you select the maps. First, you see whether the you have a raw sagittal data, and see that the Q is in the negative. You see that all the pupils are of this almost similar size, or you can delete one of the readings. And then the quality of this data. Now, suppose some of them are red, you can decrease the optical zone, then many of them become green, and then you go ahead with this. Then out of these maps above, you select in such a way that your mean axis deviation comes to 0. So MAD has to be 0 as far as possible. Of course, this is not possible when we are dealing with abnormal corneas, but at least for normal corneas, you keep on taking reading till you get this as 0. Then what do you mean by C4 C12 compensation? First is that you feed the modified refraction as 0. Okay, look for C12 value in Zernike. I will show you by means of map. Add 2/3 of that in the modified sphere area, and check out that the C4 and C12 are equal, and add that compensation to the treatment. Now, what it means that whenever you have taken only when you have fed that the refraction you have fed as 0, what you are left with over here is only the higher order aberrations which are being treated. So you click on the Zernike over here, and what you will get, it will give you C12. That means the amount of spherical aberration this treatment is inducing. Okay, and this will cause some refractive effect, and this which we have to adjust at C4. C4 stands for the defocus, that is a spherical refractive error, and C12 is the spherical higher order aberration. Now, there are some set standard guidelines by Alcon, which we followed initially. What if the manifest cylinder is more than subjective, and what if the subjective is more than manifest, and what if the axes are not matching. But the most important is this contraindications, that when the difference between the two cylinders is more than 1.25, or the difference between the axis of the measured and the subjective refraction are more than 5 degrees or 10 degrees, depending upon the amount of cylinder, you do not go ahead with contour. So axis matching, cylinder power matching, and that point I have explained. Now over here we require some kind of brainstorming, is that when topo cylinder and manifest refraction are matching, the manifest refraction cylinder, it means that it's not a highly aberrated cornea. Or in other words, when the power or axis of the topo and manifest refraction are not matching, it is an highly aberrated cornea, and that means this patient is likely to be benefited very well by Contura. But Contura was contraindicated in all such cases. And then this was the point put forth in one of the conferences by Dr. Rohit Shetty, and it's it's a path breaker point, a kind of a thought. So eye surgeon needs a tool which will calculate refractive effect of the individual talasis. Talasis is the elevation on the corneal map, which are representative of higher order aberrations, and the vector summation and of all these, and then applying nomogram. So we have a software called Forcides, which we are using in all the cases. Now there are 4 different origins of cylinder. You can see refraction, topographic contribution, that is the talus, then the change in the cylinder correction or the posterior corneal astigmatism, and I'm sorry, I've made some, there are 4 types of cylinders. Number 1 is refraction, number 2 is the topographic contribution, third is the posterior corneal astigmatism, and fourth is the lenticular astigmatism. So you take all of them, make a vector summation, and adjust for spherical equivalent and nomogram. All these things are done by Forcides, and it takes hardly any time. So this is the first opening slide of the Forcides, or the screen of the Forcides, where all those 4 components are entered here. And when you click analyze, you can see that these taluses are marked by the software, and each talus is given a specific value. That means what refractive effect it will have on your treatment. This is another example. Now you can see that there are 3 small ones, taluses. You have a choice to delete any of those if you feel that they are not significant. And the output screen is over here. You can it will give you that this is what you need to treat. Okay, and that this is also nomogram adjusted, and you feed in straight into the our workstation and go ahead with the treatment. So Forcides has a much advanced than the simple nomogram which was provided by Alcon. It is much faster, calculation done in 10 seconds, better postoperative results than other method for sure, and especially for abnormal cornea, it really works. Okay, but the important take-home message is that if you are a beginner, let us not get into any kind of hurry. Then don't jump out. Start with simple cases. See your post-op map, visual acuity, understand how things are, and then go on doing more and more complicated cases. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Wavekar, for bringing in. Can you stop sharing your screen? For
Yes.
Bringing in a lot more thoughts about Contura and what all we need to know. I would start just a few questions here to the expert panel. what would be, since you realize that on a contour LASIK, you are able to measure a lot more points and brings in more kind of accuracy. Is there any of you have a cutoff value of astigmatic correction when instead of doing a wavefront optimized treatment in these eyes, you would prefer, because the astigmatic value is higher, you would prefer to do a contour LASIK? Or is it that you would decide not to do SMILE because astigmatism is more and do a contour LASIK? Anybody has thoughts on this? Should I specifically ask Namrata? What is happening? Ramurthy? What is this? What has happened to expert panel? I think I need a sort of a written understanding that they would be there throughout the meeting and disappear. Okay, Dr. Vavikar, I'm going to ask you. Do you have some?
Sorry, Chitra, you were asking a question, I think.
With a higher amount of astigmatism, do you feel that you may not do SMILE for these patients, but you would like to do contour, femtocontour for them for a better correction of astigmatism?
So contour, I think the limits of astigmatism are same as that for what basically you do contour planning, and I do not think that SMILE and contour that way would be interchangeable. That if you're not doing SMILE, you'll do contour in those patients, and the limits of astigmatism would be same as that would be for wavefront optimized ablations. There will not be any different.
Dr. Chandrasekhar, do you think otherwise?
Yes, ma'am. There are two extremes. The lower extreme I will take first, that if the spherical equivalent or the C12 is very, very low, it means that the patient does not have too many of HOA, and then I would not like to do contour. I will go with a simple wavefront optimized LASIK. Second thing is that the other extreme, if there is an unexplained cylinder, which we many times attribute to lenticular astigmatism, then again, I would not like to do contour. I will go with wavefront optimized LASIK.
Ramurthy, are you there? Dr. Praveen, in your, are you all having contour LASIK in your setup?
Yeah, we do. And I think I would agree with Dr. Vavikar, but Vavikar has had extensive experience in using contour as well. For most eyes that are virgin, at least from what we've seen, there is potentially very little difference from the perspective of the parameters we measure, which is only visual acuity between contour and wavefront. If we measure things like wavefront, vision quality, and contrast, then you'll probably find a difference. But for the parameters that we measure, it probably is not different. The real value of contour lies in corneas that are slightly abnormally shaped. And I think like post keratoplasty, keratoconus, like PRK that you do, that is where it really shows a significant value. And also, for me at least, in these highly irregular corneas, contour is almost always a two-stage procedure, because that seems to be where you get the best result from the point of view of refractive predictability.
That means when contour is largely been thought of as being a treatment for normal corneas, so that means what you are trying to tell us is that if the topographic axis and the manifest axis or the magnitude of a cylinder is different, you would still decide to do contour LASIK in those eyes?
I don't think it's just about the cylinder. I think it's a lot more than just the cylinder. Cylinder is one of the things that is evident for us because we see the difference between the manifest and what is on topography. But I would even say that as a very simple rule, somebody who is not 20/20 on visual acuity measurement would potentially be a beneficiary from a contour treatment, is probably a simplest way of putting it.
Yes, Ramurthy, I wanted to ask about your thoughts about a patient coming in with a higher amount of astigmatism and you deciding, keeping as one of the factors to choose between SMILE or a contour LASIK. You have anything to add on that?
Oh. we might consider that this Contura might be a better option simply because there is cyclotorsion compensation. The treatment is centered on the visual axis, and tracking of the eye is also there. Now, having said that, there have been enough studies which have shown that SMILE, at least in reasonable degrees of astigmatism, gives results which are equivalent to that of wavefront optimized treatment. There has been no direct comparison with Contura as far as I know, but the results of SMILE are also quite gratifying. Having said that, I was sorry I had to go, but I joined in when Praveen was commenting. As he said, I think most of these topo-guided treatments are much more effective when we have a corneal abnormality and we are doing a topo-guided treatment for correcting an abnormal cornea. But by definition, Contura is for refractive error on a normal cornea where we are trying to address small degrees of higher order aberrations, trying to show an improvement in the visual acuity. That happened in those cherry-pick cases which underwent the FDA trial, simply because any eye with an abnormal where the subjective and the manifest, the accepted values did not match, they were taken out of the study. So obviously, we want to go ahead and treat such of those eyes which have a significant amount of higher order aberrations. And I think Focidis is something that allows us to do that. So more than sticking on to the conventional algorithms that Alcon offered us initially, exploring on beyond that and going on to the Focidis is definitely a step forward. And at least in our center also, we find that that works better.